Hey, what's up, guys? We are back, Dr. Castillo, with the Spanish Chiropractic Success 12-week boot camp. So this is week 10. Now we're going to take some x-rays. Luckily, I kind of did this training already, which is kind of nice. It's on YouTube. We're going to do, I'm going to do a quick screen share, kind of fill in the gaps. I kind of gave a brief overview, but I'm going to definitely fill in some things for you so that you get a full comprehensive training on how to do x-rays. If you don't have x-rays in your clinic, then this training won't mean anything to you. But if you have x-rays, and trust me, patients really value that x-ray because you'll see why. X-rays are awesome for Spanish speakers, and I'll tell you, and it's because of the language barrier in the hospitals. I'll just say it right up front. X-rays are awesome if you know how to explain what you're doing and how to interpret them. You're going to be viewed as a or revered as a doctor that can help them, because some people just really want to know what's going on. They want to know the condition of their bones. They want to know something fractured or something. They'll say quebrado, like it's something like broken, doc, and you'll be able to tell them what's wrong with them and what needs to be done for them to fix it. But before that, we have to know how to set them up for that. So we're going to do a little screen share. I will show you what is up. So on the YouTube, this is what I got. Hey everyone, Dr. Castillo here again with Spanish Chiropractic Success. Welcome back. If you've liked these videos before, be sure to like and subscribe. This is chiropractic content for the Spanish-speaking population. Today we're going to go over x-ray commands. This is an important concept in the clinic, especially for your associate docs. They're going to probably be taking a lot of x-rays, whether it be a car accident, work accident, or sports injury. That's a really common one too. You're going to want to know how to guide people in the x-ray room in Spanish so that they feel comfortable with your clinic. They know that you know your stuff and that you know that you can help them with their injuries. Specifically with x-rays, hopefully you do kind of a similar process that we do. We don't actually have patients take off any clothes. If you do have them take off clothes, I'll make a separate video on that. I'd have to make a different lingo for that. But for our purposes, we have all forward here. Vas a estar aquí y my spiel. I say, ven para acá. Yep. So before they even go in the room, I'll stop share here quick. So before they go in the room, you're gonna want to tell them what you're doing. So vamos a tomar radiografías para evaluar la condición de los huesos. You are going to take x-rays to evaluate the condition of the bones. I say that every time. I say it confidently. That's all that matters, really, because 97% of communication is how you're saying it. So just the way that you say it is really, really key. Vamos a tomar radiografías para evaluar la condición de los huesos. If you want, you can send me a recording of you saying that, and I can critique you, for example, on the pronunciation. Because if you nail this down, they're going to be like, oh, dang. He knows what he's talking about. That evaluar, that's a very professional way of saying, hey, we're going to evaluate, So after that, patient will understand what we're going to do. And you'll see in the beginning of the video, I say, puedes poner tus cosas metálicas allá. Hey, can you put your metallic items over there? And then point. Puedes poner tus cosas metálicas allá. Right? Or you can say, ¿tienes cosas metálicas? You have metal items. And they'll just, and then they'll kind of ask you a question afterwards. So if you say, ¿tienes cosas metálicas? They won't just say, sí, or no. Like if they say sí, they'll be like, sí,
¿qué necesito hacer? ¿Poner allá o qué? You know, they'll ask you a question. And then you can say, puedes poner tus cosas metálicas allá. Just something like that. You can put your metallic items right over there, is what I'm saying. Very basic. And then after that, I say, regresa aquí después. Por favor. Very professional in the X-ray part. So return here after, please. And then after that, we start setting them up. So we'll go back into the training here. Yeah.
Estar aquí y mirar enfrente. Primero, you're gonna come in here and you're gonna look in front. And then I'm able to.
So I'm gonna say this in the video, but I'll say it right now. If you really don't want to have to remember, like that's I'm talking about future tense in this type of vocabulary sense. So there's the present tense, past tense, and future tense. So in the future, I'm telling them, hey, Vasa, you're going to be here, and then look in front. Or you can just go to the place that you want them to go and just say, aquí por favor, repite. Just repeat.
Look at them and see if they have any metallic items like a necklace or earrings. You're going to want to know those vocab words. Aretes. Well, I just say like esta cosa. I don't really know how to say, like, it depends on what they have, you know. But I ask them like, ¿tienes cosas metálicas? Por ejemplo, un cinturón or aretes. And then they tell me like, hey, I actually have my keys, my phone. And I say, hey, puedes poner las cosas allá y puedes regresar aquí. And then.
So with the metallic items, sometimes they'll ask you like, mi cinturón, which means my belt. And then you can say sí, or mis aretes, right? Or sometimes the ladies are like, doctor, hay cosas metálicas aquí con mi bra strap, you know, or they'll ask about their bra strap, and then they'll be like, eso está bien, no? And you'll be like, yeah, it's okay, it's okay. I haven't had any issues with seeing bra strap metallic items on the x-rays. So for the women, I don't really worry about that. I say, sí, está bien, todo bien. But for sure, for the earrings that they can take out, belt, yes, belt, earrings, and then they'll ask, like mis llaves, my keys, mi cartera, or my wallet. That too, you know, and then you could just say, sí, like my wallet and everything, like keys, stuff like that. Why not? So they'll ask you typically, so just watch out for those vocab words, and then typically you'll just say, sí, está bien, right?
And they take their stuff off, they come back, they go in the front. I tell them, I don't really go through like how I'm gonna position the x-ray. I just tell them like where they have to be and where they need to stand and how they need to position themselves. So really at the beginning, I'm taking all my A to P films. I'm doing my thing right here with the vertical horizontal. Whether it's on AP, let's say cervical, and I ask them to look down or look up, for example, so that we can see all those oncovertebral joints. I might say, repite por favor, right? Anything you want them to do, just say, repite por favor, because they're going to repeat what you're doing. So if you want them to look up, just say, repite por favor. And then if you want them to not move, just stay still, you just say, no te muevas, right? And then you run over, you do the x-ray.
We'll go over these here. So we'll stop share. So you see what I'm doing is I'm preparing them for that APU, sorry, AP view. So I'll say enfrente primero, por favor, which means in front first, please. If I want them to move to the left, excuse me. I'll say mueve a la izquierda, por favor. Or you can just say a la izquierda, por favor. To the left. If you want to shorten it into, let's say, you know, you're doing this, maybe you got your hands on their kind of like their shoulders-ish, and you don't feel like it's right, you can just say, poquito así, por favor. Which means a little like this, please, right? So you're actually moving, they know what direction to go. Because if you start using left and rights, you might confuse them, you might not. It just depends on how well you deliver. If you want to avoid using left, right, you can say poquito así, which means like this. It's a very good word to use. Así. Así. Poquito así, por favor. Or let's say they need to go this way. Poquito así, por favor. Let's say you just want them to move a little bit. You can put an ito at the end. So let's say you want to say like poquito. So poquito is small, but if you say poquitito, which means little small, like little small. So let's say they move this way, and then they move too far, and I'm like, oh, poquitito así, por favor. Which means move about half the amount of distance that you moved just before, and they'll kind of get the picture. So at the end of the day, you can put your hands on them. Just be really direct in what direction you want them to go and what you're trying to do. So like, if you want them to do something, you can always just repeat it. Like, I'm not even kidding. So like some people, their legs might be completely like bent off or whatever, or just whatever. I'll stand next to them and I'll just be like, repite, por favor. And I'll put my legs where I want them. I prefer the legs to be straight. I prefer arms to the side. I prefer if they're looking straight ahead, making sure they're like this, they're back all the way to the cassette, so you'll have to know this, atrás, adelante. Those are really good words to know. Atrás means backwards. Adelante means forward. All right, so if you want them to move left and right, you can say, oh, poquito así, right? And then if you want them to move forward, you can say adelante, por favor, or you can say atrás, por favor. And typically for the forward and backward, that's really with the side view. If their butt isn't pressing against the cassette, obviously atrás, por favor, you want to back them up. But if we're doing a side view and the X isn't quite lined up here or on the mid back or the low back, wherever you're taking it, whatever view, you can tell them poquito adelante, poquito atrás, right? Or if they're just having problems, you can always just go right up to them and just say, repite, por favor, and they'll, and actually like point with your hand, they'll get it, like it's kind of not perfect. And believe me, there's some people that literally come in and I feel like we're lost in translation because they're from a different city or a different country than Mexico. So we do a lot of communication with hands and just repite, like honestly, and it works because they know that you're just trying to do your job, and so they're going to try to comply with you, and they're going to try to meet you halfway whenever they can. So atrás, which is backwards, adelante is forward. Let's keep going. There we go.
Great, boom, done. If, for example, they're
No te muevas. No te muevas. I forgot to do that one. Once they're in the right position, you can say no te muevas. Por favor. I had a patient teach me that one time. It was awesome. I didn't say it quite right. And then he corrected me in how it made sense to him. And I never stopped that. So, and it's worked every time since then. Please do not. Ooh. No te muevas. As. That's what he corrected me on. Because I said no te mueves. And he was like, no, it's no te muevas. There we go. Close that. Screen it. There we go.
Too far forward, you might ask them to go, oh, poquito más atrás.
Atrás.
Atrás is backwards. So they may scoot back, they may scoot back. And then let's say you want them to go left or right. I mean, that's up to you whether you want to say your right or their right. You have to distinguish. So to be honest, if they're like a little bit off to the left, sometimes I might go, hey, puedes mover así, and then I'll scoot a little to the right. And
see what I did there. Puedes mover así, así. We're gonna say poquito así, right? You can even shorten it. I mean, even in this training was done many months ago. I found that you can even shorten it into even more. It actually doesn't make sense when you write it down on paper, but when the patient is there in front of me and I'm saying like poquito así, it just means a little like this. It works, it's informal, but at the end of the day, you're just trying to accomplish a task, which is get the x-rays done. So less is more, or less is more impactful, in my opinion.
And then they'll match me. Or if you want to say, puedes mover a tu izquierda, do you want to move to your left a little bit, poquitito? Then you can have them position themselves like that. And then after we're done with all the ADP, I'll switch them to the side views, so like lateral views. So if they're like this, I'll say, okay, vamos a chequear el lado así. So vas a tronar así y mirar directamente así. So you're gonna say like, hey, you're gonna turn. We're gonna look here, and then I'll say manos así, right? Depending on if you do this or this to get them out of the view, you kind of have to play that by ear because some patients are in a lot of discomfort. So before you have that command of hombros así, you might have to wait if they're in pain. If it's just a low back condition and they don't have anything going on in the neck or shoulders, you can be okay. You'll be okay just having them sit like this for a bit. And then you would position everything, make sure, right, they're either forward or backward. So you're going to use those commands of atrás or adelante, más adelante.
And what's cool is if you don't want to use hombros así, at the end of the day, remember guys, just repite. Repite. Or if you do repite or repite, however you have them positioned, just tell them and then just say repite. It's like I use that all day. So, and they're probably like, wow, that's the only word that this doc knows, but whatever, that's all I got because he's the only one that can understand me. So repite is definitely one of my favorite words to use during the x-rays.
Means forward. So if they're too far backward, you have to make them go forward and vice versa. And then if they're not close enough to this bucky right here, you have to say más cerca, por favor, más cerca, and then shift like this. You can show them how to shift. And this is
so that's great because if you're doing an AP view and they're not where they're supposed to be, you can tell them to go atrás. But if their side is to the cassette and they're not quite touching, you have to say más cerca, more closer is basically what that means. So that you get a proper side view.
Specific, this is probably the most important part of the video, guys. For women, I like to tell them what I'm going to do before I do what I do. Specifically when I'm looking for either hip measurements or I want to see like where the hips are, where the belly button is. I'm telling them like, hey, voy a checar el nivel de las caderas, voy a tocar aquí, voy a tocar aquí. I'm going to touch right here. And then they say, okay, right? Versus if you just go in there and just start doing stuff, that might be like a little weird.
Yeah, so I do this even when they're on the table. We'll stop share here. I do this on the table when I'm checking hips. I'll do this while I'm in the room. I like to just see where that level is when I'm doing A to P or even when I'm doing side view. For men and women, I like to practice voy a tocar aquí. Okay. I am going to touch here. Okay. That should be good. Then they'll give you permission and you go for it.
Weird. And now that's because I'm a guy. Now, if I'm a girl, right, and I'm play that by ear, but you're never going to be wrong if you say like, oh, okay, voy a tocar aquí, voy a checar el nivel de las caderas, because I like to check hips. I like to check a little bit higher up to see where kind of like the small of the side lumbar is to position the lateral lumbars, and then I move up the bucket or move up the collimator a little bit to get that side view of the lumbar. And then after that, remember the phrase for stand still, do not move is no te muevas, por favor, right?
Yep.
And then they know to not move. All right. And then if you do breathing and expiration films, if you want them to say like if you want them to say like a breathe in, you can say respire y no te muevas, right? Or suéltelo y no te muevas. Suéltelo is let it all out. I don't do those films specifically, but if you in your clinic swear by that sort of technique and that's a part of your process, all the power to you. So hope you guys learned how to do.
So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's basic stuff. This is like how to take x-rays. I'll need to do another training specifically on how to review x-rays. Reviewing x-rays is tough. It really is. It requires another training. Today I really just wanted to get into the x-ray commands, because once you get through all this stuff, it's pretty straightforward. I don't do a ton of crazy lingo in the day 2 review of findings, or if you do a review of findings after the day 1, that's fine too. But really the interpretation is also an important part, and they'll appreciate that you actually went over them you went over them with them. You went over the x-rays with them. Huge appreciation for that. And then just kind of as a final final note. So one of the things that I've picked up on during the treatment room, this is just patients like venting to me. This is just, I'm just the messenger here. Most Spanish speakers hate going to hospitals to take x-rays for a variety of reasons. There's just tons of paperwork. They might not have a translator. The doctor doesn't go over the x-rays with them. Remember, like, you know how it is. Like they'll just call you and tell you if something's wrong. And if you don't get a call, it means that everything's negative. So they hate doing it. Sometimes they wait like 3-4 hours in the waiting room. Like they just tell me all these stories, guys. And so during the treatment room, this is a little advanced. You'll get to a point. If you really want to know this, just message me. But I'll basically explain to the patient, like I'll go through a sequence, and I do this to like stab at the medical. I mean, I'm out for blood, guys. So I'll say, yeah, just imagine you could be waiting 3-4 hours in the treatment room or in the waiting room right now just to take x-rays at a hospital, whereas here, it took you 15 minutes. And I'll smile, and they're like, yeah, I know what you're saying. It's way better coming here. And what they do is they remember that. And then if they need x-rays, or if somebody close to them needs x-rays, they actually bring them to the clinic to get those x-rays done, because they know the clinic procedure is so easy. It takes virtually no time, just fill out all the paperwork. And they also get the x-ray review, and they spread that amongst the community. And so it's really cool, because then they're like, well, screw that. I'm not going to go to a hospital. Plus, they're going to charge me hundreds of dollars, right? Especially if they don't have car insurance, especially if they don't have health insurance. There are just so many disadvantages for Spanish speakers when they go to a health clinic or a hospital when taking x-rays. Whereas if they take x-rays at a chiro clinic with like a small business, not only is that better for small business, but number 2, it's more accessible and easier if they have Spanish speaking personnel, AKA the doctor speaks Spanish. So you can take them, review them, interpret them all in the same day or a 2-day process. Man, that like patients freaking love that. Whereas, I mean, for English speakers, it's not really a problem. Like they know the system, they know that they have health insurance. It's not like they're afraid of the system or confused by it or perplexed by it. Like there's not like stress about it. But for Spanish speakers, there's a lot of anxiety that happens when they walk into a hospital or health clinic just to take x-rays. So just wanted to share that with you, because that's one of the perks of being able to take x-rays for Spanish speakers, is that you kind of fill in a little kind of like a weak spot in the medical model. They haven't really made clinics accessible for Spanish speakers unless they have translators. But even the translator, like it's not as good as having like a front desk that speaks Spanish or the doctor speaks Spanish. You know what I mean? So I'm going to shut up. Have an awesome, blessed day, guys. And until next time.